Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. Due to YouTube's changing quote-unquote community standards, I created a channel called Grumpy Old Fart over on Rumble, a free speech alternative to YouTube. You can see all of my stuff over there, including my political and social commentary, as well as my current events videos. The links to my YouTube and Rumble channels, as well as links to let you order my books, are in the description of this video. If you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. I welcome your comments, even if you disagree with me. Now, on with the video. Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. I'm doing an advanced Dungeons & Dragons advice video on party makeup. And no, I'm not talking about putting makeup on your party members. I'm talking about how your party is populated, the classes that are in it, that kind of thing. Okay, I started playing Dungeons & Dragons back in 1976. I started running advanced Dungeons & Dragons back in 1979. I've been doing this a long time. One thing many people have a hard time understanding is that advanced Dungeons & Dragons, and most tabletop role-playing games for that matter, are team games. One player takes the part of the Dungeon Master. In other games, it's called the Game Master, or the Storyteller, or the Mission Director, or whatever. In advanced Dungeons & Dragons, it's called the Dungeon Master. This person runs the game. He or she controls the world and everyone and everything in it, that in that world, that's not the other players. So anybody who's not a player character, the Dungeon Master runs. The rest of the players make up characters, personas, avatars, whatever you want to call them, which are their playing pieces in the game. Characters in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons belong to a class, or a profession, if you will. These classes are Fighter, Wizard, which is like a magic user, Cleric, Thief, or Monk. Actually, I think it's called a magic user. Wizard is what everybody calls it, because that's what it is. So you got Fighters, Magic Users, Clerics, Thieves, or Monks. These are the basic classes that there are. Subclasses exist like Rangers, Paladins, Druids, Assassins, etc. Bards, that kind of thing. A Bard is, in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, Bard is one you build. You start out as I think a fighter or a thief, and then you go to whichever the other one, and then you take up training as a druid, but by that time you're a bard. I really like bards, because by the time you actually become a bard, you don't need to be. You've got everything else, you know? At any rate, but the subclasses are there: Ranger, Paladin, Druid, Assassin, that kind of thing. Each class has specific skills and abilities, but no one class can do everything. Hence the term, that's why it's a team game. A party can be made up of literally any combination of these classes and subclasses. Now, over the years, I have used a number of different methods for figuring out the different classes that players would run. Generally speaking, I let players choose their classes. Usually this works out pretty well. Then, of course, there was a time we had 8 magic users in the game with nothing else. Had 8 players and everybody wanted to run a magic user, which, you know, it worked really good. But the problem was, at first level, they decided to explore an old temple, and the denizens of that temple, a band of orcs led by a high-level Orcan cleric, yeah, they feasted well. Sometimes I will write down the classes that I need for the party on pieces of paper and have each person draw randomly, usually as they come in the door. Sometimes I'll write the classes down on a clipboard and hand it to the players as they arrive. They choose what they want to play on a first-come, first-served basis, basically. However you want to do it, you know, as long as nobody objects to, it's fine. Ideally, in any party, you want at least one wizard, at least one thief, and at least one cleric. And then you want a number of fighters. More fighters than anything else, because that's what you're going to need the most of. Now, certainly clerics can be good fighters, but they're also your healers. So, you know. And thieves make great fighters as long as they can attack from behind, you know, sneak attack. But again, there is no substitute for a good old-fashioned fighter. Party size is also a serious consideration. I prefer a party of 5 to 6 players. More than that, and the game can get bogged down. I've run games of 8 to 12 before. That was plenty. That was more than enough. I ran a group of 16 one time. That was a nightmare. 5 to 6 players is good because you can have a wizard, a cleric, a thief, and 2 to 3 fighters. It's a nice little team. I have run players solo, and it can be fun. Groups of 2 to 4 is good, but you have to have players that are resourceful and intelligent and have good characters. Otherwise, the Dungeon Master needs to adjust the game that he's preparing. If you're preparing for a group of 2 to 4 players, that's cool. Generally, games have parties a bit bigger than that. During the course of the game, you will have player characters die. That's just a part of the game. When a player makes up a new character, you don't want them to run the same character over and over because it becomes cookie cutter, dull, and boring. The last thing you want any of your players to say is, I'm kind of bored with this. You know what I'm saying? I have a house rule that I use, and it works really well. If your character dies, your next character has to be of a different class. That helps to keep the experience fresh. That rule can kind of bite you in the ass because it's rare that this happens, but it can happen. I had a group one time, I had a wizard, a cleric, a thief, and 3 fighters. And through the course of the game, the wizard, the cleric, and the thief all turned and fled because the fighters all died. So the fighters had to run something else. We ended up in a group with no fighters. That was a little dicey for a while there, you know. But again, that's rare. The chances of everybody of one class dying if you have more than one is you know, if you have a total party kill, just have people pick different things. I'm just saying. One thing you need to stress and foster in your players as the Dungeon Master is teamwork. If you're the Dungeon Master, you have to stress teamwork in your players. As I said before, no one character class can do everything. Fighters fight. Thieves sneak and check for traps. Clerics heal. Wizards use magic. A fighter facing 100 peasants can kill a lot of them, but I guarantee you that at least one of them will get lucky and they're going to roll a crit or whatever, and the fighter will die. The 100 peasants with you know, rakes and hoes and like that will, you know, garden implements, they're going to get that fighter. It just takes time. You add a wizard on the fighter side, and you have fireballs in the masked peasants beyond the front lines, essentially artillery, and it makes everything better. Add a thief to the mix, and he might be able to find a way to sneak past the peasants to avoid the fight altogether. Add a cleric to the team, and you have a medic who can keep the group healthy. So as you can see, each class has their own skills and abilities which complement the others. Make sure that when you design adventures, there's plenty for every character to do. This can be exceedingly difficult, but not doing so can alienate specific characters, players, and make them feel useless. One of the last things you want is for one of your players to say, I got no reason for me to hear, you know. When a player feels their character is useless, they won't want to play for very long. And remember, the Dungeon Master's job is to make sure each player is having fun. So you have to have you have to have stuff planned for each class to do. In a town, the fighters may be carousing in the inn looking for information. The thief may be talking to the local guilds for information. The cleric will be down at the temple looking for information, and the wizard can be researching for information. Everybody has a part to play. In a fight, as I said, the fighters are the front line. The thieves are trying to get around either behind to backstab or finding a way out. They're scouting. The clerics are healing the fighters. The wizards are casting fireballs behind the front lines, as it were. Everybody has a part to play. It's just, you have to, as a dungeon master, you have to stress teamwork. If everybody runs the same character classes, you get the thing I had with the 8 wizards. It just doesn't work well. It's just not as good. Plus, variety is the spice of life, you know. Hope this finds everybody well. You folks have a good day. God bless one and all. Clarissa Lowe, a historian from the future. Delmore Kane, a Civil War veteran turned outlaw. This oddball pairing faces a conspiracy of epic proportions spanning the centuries. If you like action and adventure westerns with a splash of science fiction and fantasy, check out my book series Drifters and their ongoing adventures.